Hello, everyone. I'm Elena, and I'm absolutely thrilled you're joining me today for what I believe will be one of our most impactful lessons yet. Sometimes you feel like you have all the pieces of English vocabulary, but when it comes to putting them together in real conversations, it's like there's a crucial piece missing, isn't it? Perhaps you're searching for those exact phrases that don't just convey meaning, but actually make you sound effortlessly confident, truly like a native speaker, allowing you to glide through any discussion with absolute ease. If that spark of recognition just went off for you, then this episode is precisely what you've been waiting for. The true secret to fluent, authentic English isn't just about expanding your vocabulary. It's about mastering the conversational phrases and expressions that native speakers use intuitively every single day. These aren't just words, they're entire units of meaning, ready made responses that you can slot into your conversations to interrupt politely, clarify understanding, agree strongly, or even change the subject smoothly. Knowing these phrases doesn't just make you sound better, it makes you feel more confident because you have a rich toolkit of ready responses at your fingertips. It reduces that stressful moment of trying to translate word for word in your head. When you hear these phrases in movies, songs, or in daily life, you'll start to recognize them. And then, effortlessly, you'll begin to weave them into your own speaking. It's like discovering the shortcuts that help you navigate the winding roads of English conversation with ease. Today, we're going to dive deep into a powerful collection of everyday English conversational phrases, grouped by their function. For each phrase, we'll unpack its exact meaning, explore why it's so important in conversation, and then give you a variety of practical, real life examples so you can hear how it sounds in different contexts. We'll also touch on nuances and even little practice prompts to help you solidify your understanding and truly make these phrases your own. So, get ready to transform your English conversation skills. Let's get into it. All right, let's begin with a fundamental aspect of truly engaging conversations, inviting others to share their thoughts and showing you value their perspective. Remember, conversations are a two-way street, right? When you ask for someone's opinion, you're not just being polite, you're also extending the conversation, encouraging deeper engagement, and demonstrating genuine interest in the other person. This is absolutely crucial for building rapport, fostering mutual understanding, and making your English conversations flow naturally and feel more balanced. It also takes the pressure off you to always be the one talking. First up, a very basic way to ask for agreement is simply, "Do you agree?" While it's direct, it's considered a closed question because it usually leads to a simple yes or no answer, which can sometimes make the conversation feel a bit abrupt or limit further discussion. It's good for quick confirmations, but perhaps not for deeper engagement. Imagine you've just stated a fact. You might say, "The new office hours start next month. Do you agree?" You're seeking a simple confirmation. Now, if you want a more interesting, detailed answer that truly opens up the conversation, you could try, "What do you think about that?" Or, "What's your opinion?" These are open-ended questions. They encourage a more elaborate response and invite the other person to share more of their perspective, their reasons, and their feelings, which naturally leads to a richer discussion. They show you're genuinely interested in hearing more than just a yes or no. Let's say you just shared a new idea for a project at work. Instead of just asking, "Do you agree?" which might get a quick nod, you could say, "I think our new marketing campaign should focus heavily on social media influencers this quarter. What do you think about that?" This prompts a more thoughtful reply. Similarly, if you're talking about a recent news event, you could ask, I was really surprised by that news article about the local park. What's your opinion on the proposed changes? Try practicing, what do you think about? And then add your own topic. To ask about someone's emotional or personal take on a topic, perhaps something a bit more subjective or sensitive, you can say, how do you feel about it? This phrase specifically invites an emotional or personal response rather than just a logical one. It shows empathy and a desire to understand their emotional reaction, which can deepen the conversation. For instance, after watching a new movie with a particularly intense or surprising ending, you might turn to your friend and ask, that movie had a really surprising ending, didn't it? How do you feel about it? This invites them to share their personal emotional response, like, I felt really confused, or I was so moved. If you want to be a little more polite or formal, perhaps in a professional setting, or when discussing a sensitive topic where directness might seem abrupt, you might say, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, or I'm interested to hear your opinion about this. These phrases show genuine respect for their viewpoint and make the other person feel valued, indicating that you genuinely wish to receive their input. They're excellent for more formal settings such as meetings or discussions with someone you don't know very well. Imagine you're at a work meeting discussing a new company policy and you want to involve a senior colleague. You could say, we've gone over the new proposal for remote work. Sarah, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. This respectfully invites her contribution. Or if you're presenting a complex idea and want feedback, I've outlined the potential solutions to this problem. I'm interested to hear your opinion about this from your perspective. And in a more formal group setting, like a meeting, when you want to politely invite someone to contribute generally or simply ask if they have anything to add, you can ask, would you like to add anything? This is a gentle way to ensure everyone has a chance to speak and contribute to the discussion, promoting inclusivity. It's also useful when someone has been quiet and you want to bring them into the conversation. After a team discussion where a few people have spoken, you might turn to someone who hasn't said much and say, John, we've covered a lot of points. Would you like to add anything to what's been said? It's a very polite invitation. These phrases are your tools for extending conversations and truly engaging with others, making your interactions richer, more balanced, and more meaningful. Now let's talk about those moments when you just have to interrupt. Perhaps you suddenly remember a crucial piece of information, need to correct a misunderstanding before it escalates, or have a vital question that can't wait. The key here is not if you interrupt, but how you do it. There are definitely polite and respectful ways to interject without coming across as rude or disrespectful, which is really important for maintaining good conversational flow in relationships. Mastering these phrases will give you the confidence to contribute when needed, without feeling like you're being impolite. You can start simply with a very brief and informal apology like, sorry, or a slightly more polite excuse me, just before you quickly make your point. These are quick, direct, and universally understood signals that you're about to interject. They're brief acknowledgments that you know you're breaking the flow, but your point is immediate. For instance, if your friend is talking about meeting on Monday, but you suddenly remember it's actually Tuesday, you could quickly interject, sorry, I thought our meeting is on Tuesday, not Monday. Or if someone is mid-sentence about a report and you need to clarify a detail immediately, you might say, excuse me, didn't you say the report was due Friday, not Thursday? These are great for brief, essential interjections. If you want to jump into a conversation with an idea, especially informally among friends or colleagues you know well, you could ask, "Do you mind if I add to that?" Or even, "Can I jump in here?" These phrases directly ask for permission to speak, showing consideration for the current speaker. "Can I jump in here?" is particularly informal and vivid, like literally jumping into the conversation. They make it clear you have a contribution ready. Imagine your friends are brainstorming ideas for a weekend trip, and you suddenly have a great suggestion. You might lean forward and say, "Can I jump in here? I've got an idea about a great hiking trail we could try." Or if a colleague is presenting, you might raise a hand slightly and ask, "Do you mind if I add to that? I have some updated figures." For a slightly more formal and explicit apology before you speak, you can say, "Sorry to interrupt, but I've got something to say." This is a common and effective way to politely signal your intention to speak, directly stating your apology and your reason. It's often used when you're speaking directly to the person you're interrupting. Imagine your boss is explaining a task and you realize you have a crucial piece of information that might change the direction. You could say, "Sorry to interrupt, but I think I have the latest data on that report which might affect our next step." It clearly states you know you're interrupting, but your information is important. If you're stepping into a room or a group discussion that's already in progress and you need to make a point, you might prefer, "Sorry for interrupting, I just needed to share something with you." This is a good phrase for group settings as it's a more general apology for interrupting the collective flow. It's often used when you're addressing the group rather than a single person. You walk into a meeting that's already started and you have urgent news. You might stand at the door and say, "Sorry for interrupting everyone, but I just needed to share a quick update on the client meeting." And if you need to be very formal, perhaps when addressing a customer, a superior, or someone in a highly professional or respectful setting, you could use, "Sorry, may I interrupt you for just a moment?" Or an even more elaborate and highly polite request to interrupt, "If I may interrupt you for a minute, I'd like to share something with you." These phrases are exceedingly polite and deferential. They are often used when the power dynamic is clear or when you want to be extremely courteous. They clearly ask for permission before proceeding, making your interruption as smooth as possible. Imagine you're at a formal conference and you need to get the attention of a speaker who is deep in conversation. You might approach them and say, "Sorry, may I interrupt you for just a moment? I have a question about your presentation." Or in a very formal client meeting, "If I may interrupt you for a minute, I'd like to share a new piece of information that just came in." A gentle way to introduce an interjection showing extra politeness is, "If you don't mind me interrupting for a moment." This phrase is a softer lead in, implying you don't want to cause any trouble but still need to speak. It's less direct than simply saying, "Sorry to interrupt." You might use this if someone is telling a long story and you want to add a small detail or clarification. "If you don't mind me interrupting for a moment, I think that happened in July, not June." These phrases are your tools to respectfully get a word in without being rude, ensuring your contribution is heard effectively and your conversational etiquette remains impeccable. We've all been there. You start talking about one thing and suddenly you're deep into a completely different subject. Maybe you got distracted, or someone told a side story, or a tangential idea just popped up. It's incredibly easy to go off topic. The ability to smoothly get a conversation back on track is a mark of a skilled English speaker. It helps maintain focus, ensures important points are covered, and prevents frustration for either party. It also shows that you value the original purpose of the conversation. When you realize you've drifted or lost your train of thought, you might ask yourself, where was I? This is a very common and natural question to yourself that signals to your listener that you're trying to recall your original point or the main thread of the discussion. It's a way of self correction in real time. For instance, I was talking about my amazing trip to Italy. Then somehow we started discussing the best pasta recipes. Where was I? Oh, yes, the ancient ruins we visited in Rome. It helps you gently steer yourself and your listener back. Try saying it now just to get the feel. Where was I? To gracefully return to your main story or point after a digression, you can say, so anyway, getting back to my story. This clearly signals a transition back to the original narrative or the main subject you were discussing. The anyway indicates that the previous digression is now complete. Imagine you're telling a funny anecdote, but then you get sidetracked talking about the weather. You'd then say, and the bus finally arrived. So, anyway, getting back to my story, it was completely packed. Or you can use the classic, as I was saying. This is perfect if you were interrupted, or if you simply paused and then resumed your point after a brief distraction. It smoothly reconnects to your last thought before the interruption. If your phone rang in the middle of explaining something, when you pick up the conversation again, you might say, as I was saying, the new software update will be rolled out next week. A simple, yes, can also signal that you've remembered what you were about to say, often accompanied by a nod or a brief pause. This short phrase acts as a natural filler, giving you a moment to recollect and signaling to the listener that you found your train of thought again. For example, the main challenge we face is, yes, it's ensuring consistent quality across all our products. Sometimes both you and the other person have gone off topic, and you want to collaboratively get back on track. In that case, you can combine phrases like, so anyway, where were we? Yes, you were talking about apples. This combined approach is conversational and friendly. So anyway, where were we? Invites the other person to help recall the main subject, making it a shared effort to get back on track. After a long, winding discussion, you might say, wow, we've covered a lot. So anyway, where were we? Yes. You were just explaining the core problem with the old system. These phrases are super useful for keeping your conversations focused and ensuring clarity, preventing important points from being lost in digressions. These phrases are absolutely vital for confident and effective communication because they help you ensure you've understood correctly, preventing misunderstandings before they lead to confusion, errors, or awkward situations. Taking a moment to confirm what you've heard shows you're actively listening, that you're engaged, and that you're committed to accurate communication, which is highly valued by native speakers. It also gives the other person a chance to clarify if they weren't clear the first time. If you didn't quite hear or grasp something perfectly, you can repeat back your understanding of a question to confirm it by saying, so what you're asking is, followed by your interpretation. This shows the other person you've been listening to and gives them an immediate opportunity to correct any misinterpretation. It's a proactive way to prevent miscommunication. For example, if someone asks you to do a task with several steps, you might say, so what you're asking is for me to send the draft by Tuesday, then wait for your feedback, and then finalize it by Friday, correct? This gives them a chance to affirm or correct any part of the instructions. Another similar option, used to paraphrase the core of what you believe the other person is trying to understand, is, "So, what you want to know is?" This phrase is great for cutting through a potentially long explanation and getting to the core question or need. It shows you've identified the main point. If a customer or colleague explains a problem in detail, you might summarize by saying, "So, what you want to know is how to reset your password without access to your old email address." Or to rephrase it entirely in your own words to make sure you're both on the same page, you might say, "Do you mean?" Or, in other words, what you're saying is, "Do you mean?" is a quick check, while, in other words, what you're saying is excellent for restating complex information simply. These are powerful tools for active listening, ensuring that your interpretation matches their intended message. Let's say your colleague suggests a drastic change. We should scrap the old system entirely and build a new one from scratch. You might respond, "Do you mean we should halt all current development?" Or, "You're recommending we completely overhaul the entire marketing strategy, even though it's been somewhat successful?" In other words, what you're saying is, "We need a completely new approach from the ground up," right? This helps you confirm the severity of their suggestion. In more formal settings like customer service or when confirming important details in a professional context, you might use the verb confirm directly. "I'd like to confirm what you said," or, "Excuse me, can I just confirm that what you said?" These are very professional and precise ways to ensure accuracy. They are particularly useful when dealing with sensitive information, bookings, or instructions where precision is key. Imagine you're at a hotel reception and the clerk is giving you instructions about your booking. You might say, "I'd like to confirm what you said about breakfast being at 7 a.m. and checkout at 11 a.m." Or if you're on a business call, "Excuse me, can I just confirm that you need these figures by end of day tomorrow?" Don't worry, native speakers won't mind you asking for clarification. In fact, they appreciate it because it prevents mistakes and makes the conversation flow more smoothly and effectively, leading to better outcomes for everyone. Naturally, we agree and disagree with people all the time, and English has so many different ways to do it. Expressing agreement clearly helps build connection, shows that you're engaged, and validates the other person's thoughts, making them feel heard and understood. This not only improves rapport, but also helps move conversations forward smoothly when there's consensus. To show you fully agree and to do it enthusiastically, you can say, "Yes, absolutely." This is a very strong, direct, and enthusiastic expression of full agreement. It conveys excitement and complete alignment with what was just said. For example, if your friend says, "This new restaurant is amazing, their pasta is incredible," you could respond with a big smile, "Yes, absolutely. I've been telling everyone about it." Or you can directly state without any ambiguity, "I completely agree with you." This phrase leaves no room for doubt about your alignment. It's straightforward and emphasizes the totality of your agreement. If a colleague makes a very insightful point in a meeting, you might say, "That's a really valid point about our budget. I completely agree with you." A fantastic and very strong expression to show full agreement, even stronger than "I completely agree," is "I couldn't agree more." This phrase is a bit of a double negative that means it's impossible for me to agree with you any more than I already do. It conveys the highest level of agreement, showing profound alignment with the other person's point of view. For instance, if a colleague says, "We really need to prioritize customer feedback and make it the cornerstone of our new strategy," you could respond with emphasis, "I couldn't agree more. It's absolutely essential for our long term growth and success." This phrase communicates that their point is so right, it resonates deeply with you. Try saying it now. "I couldn't agree more." Feel how strong that agreement is. These phrases help you express genuine support and solidarity in a conversation, fostering positive connections. Sometimes you don't completely agree or you have a slightly different perspective, but you want to be polite and diplomatic. These phrases help you express partial disagreement or a nuanced perspective without being confrontational or shutting down the discussion. The goal here is to show that you've listened and understood their point, even if your opinion isn't identical. This is a vital skill for mature and respectful conversations, especially in professional or sensitive personal contexts. You can start by validating their perspective, showing you've understood their point before introducing your different opinion. "I see what you mean, but," or "I understand your point of view, but." These acknowledge that you comprehend their argument even if you don't fully adopt it. They soften the disagreement by first showing empathy and comprehension. It creates a bridge before you introduce a differing view. For example, your friend might suggest, "We should definitely launch this product next month, even if it's not perfect." You could respond, "I see what you mean, but I think rushing it could lead to more problems in the long run." Or, "I understand your point of view, but I'm concerned about the potential negative feedback if we release it too early." Another similar option, which shows you recognize their reasoning or the basis of their argument, is, "I can see where you're coming from, but..." This phrase is good for acknowledging their perspective and the logic behind it, even if you don't share their conclusion. It's very empathetic and less confrontational. Or if a colleague explains why they took a certain action, you might say, "I can see where you're coming from, but I'm not sure that was the most efficient way to handle the client's request." If you agree with some parts but not others, indicating a limited agreement, you could say, "I agree with you up to a point, however." This indicates partial agreement, suggesting you concur with some aspects of their statement, but not entirely. And then you introduce your differing view or a caveat. It sets up a nuanced argument. For instance, "I agree with you up to a point that we need to save money. However, I don't think cutting staff is the right solution at this stage." This acknowledges their initial premise, saving money, but then offers a different strategy. These phrases show that you're listening and comprehending, even if your opinion differs slightly, allowing for a more balanced and respectful dialogue, which is key to effective communication. Now, what about when you disagree completely? Even in strong disagreement, it's possible and often crucial to maintain politeness and respect, especially in professional settings or with people you care about. It's all about how you phrase it, making sure your message is clear without being confrontational or rude. A clear but polite way to state your difference is, "I don't feel the same way." This is a softer way of saying you disagree because it focuses on your personal feeling or perspective rather than directly refuting their statement. It's less confrontational than a direct "I disagree." If a friend expresses a strong opinion that you completely oppose, you might gently say, "Oh, really? Actually, I don't feel the same way about that. I think." Or you can be a bit more direct with, "Actually, I don't quite agree," or simply "I disagree." These phrases are more direct, but still generally acceptable. I don't quite agree softens it slightly, implying that your disagreement isn't absolute or that you're not fully on board. I disagree is direct and unambiguous. In a discussion, if a statement is made that you know is factually incorrect, you might interject with, actually, I don't quite agree with that assessment. My data shows. Or if a proposal is made that you cannot support, you might say, I disagree with the recommendation to outsource that department. To add a layer of politeness, especially when delivering potentially unwelcome news or a differing opinion, you can use the phrase, I'm afraid. I'm afraid I don't agree with you on that or about that. The phrase, I'm afraid here, doesn't mean you're scared. Instead, it indicates a sense of reluctance or regret that you have to deliver an unpleasant statement or a differing opinion. It softens the blow of the disagreement. For example, if a colleague is sure about a certain approach, you might say, I'm afraid I don't agree with you on that point. I think the data suggests a different direction. This shows you're not happy to disagree, but you must. If you're in a formal situation and want to emphasize respect despite your disagreement, you can use respectfully, I have to disagree. This is a very formal and highly polite way to express disagreement. It explicitly states that you respect the other person and their opinion, even as you state your opposition. It's crucial in professional or tense discussions where maintaining decorum is paramount. In a high stakes business meeting, if a senior leader proposes a strategy you believe is flawed, you might say, respectfully, I have to disagree with that approach. I believe it carries significant risks that we need to consider. And if a conversation is getting a little heated, or if you and the other person have reached an impasse and you want to acknowledge the stalemate and politely end the discussion on that topic, you can say, well, we'll have to agree to disagree then. This phrase indicates that you've reached a point where further discussion on that specific issue is unproductive, and it's time to move on from the topic. It's a gracious way to end a disagreement without resentment. After a long debate about a sensitive political issue where neither side is convincing the other, you might say, it seems we have very different views on this. Well, we'll have to agree to disagree then. Shall we talk about something else? This helps you transition smoothly to a more neutral topic. Remember, in English, body language also matters when disagreeing, so try to avoid obvious signs of frustration like eye rolling or sighing, unless you intentionally want to show strong annoyance. Speaking of changing the topic, these phrases are super useful when you want to shift the conversation smoothly and naturally. Whether you've run out of things to say on the current subject, want to introduce something completely new, or need to pivot to a more urgent or interesting matter, these phrases help you transition gracefully, maintaining the flow of conversation and keeping things engaging. If the new topic is somewhat connected to the previous one, you could use a linking phrase like, that reminds me. This phrase signals that your new topic is triggered by something just mentioned, creating a smooth and logical bridge from one idea to the next. It makes the transition feel natural rather than abrupt. For example, if you're talking about a vacation you took and someone mentions the beach, you might say, that reminds me, I should call Sarah. She lives near that beach and I haven't talked to her in ages. Another way to link ideas, especially when moving from a specific point to a related but broader discussion, is speaking about speaking of that. This is great for bridging two related but distinct points, allowing you to gracefully pivot. It acknowledges the current topic while introducing a related one. For instance, We were just discussing vacation plans. Speaking of that, did I tell you I've got a trip planned later in the year to Japan? I'm so excited. Or if you're talking about a celebrity, you might say, speaking of her, did you hear about her new movie? But if you want to introduce something completely different, something that just popped into your head and isn't directly related to what's being discussed, you can try, oh, by the way, did I tell you about this? This signals an abrupt but intentional shift to a new, often unrelated topic. The by the way clearly indicates a diversion, but it's informal and common, so it feels natural. You might be discussing work, and suddenly you remember something personal you wanted to share. Oh, by the way, did I tell you about that new coffee shop that opened near my apartment? It's amazing. Or if you've just remembered something important you don't want to forget, something perhaps urgent or time sensitive, you could say, oh, while I remember, or before I forget, I've got something I want to say. These phrases are your way of saying, I have something important or interesting to share right now and I want to get it out before it slips my mind. They indicate that the information is somewhat time sensitive or highly relevant to your thoughts at that moment. Oh, while I remember, don't forget we have that team meeting at 2 p.m. today. Or, before I forget, I need to send out the revised proposal to the client this afternoon. If it's a really abrupt change and you want to acknowledge it for smoothness, being transparent about your intention, you can even explicitly state it. I know this is completely changing the topic, but I've got to tell you. This phrase shows self awareness and politely signals a major shift in conversation. It manages expectations, letting the other person know you're intentionally moving to an unrelated subject. You might be in a deep discussion about a serious issue, but you suddenly have exciting personal news you can't hold in. I know this is completely changing the topic, but I just got engaged. I couldn't wait to tell you. These expressions help you steer the conversation in a new direction, ensuring you can bring up what you need to without awkward pauses, keeping your discussions dynamic and interesting. Now for some advanced conversation skills. Talking about potentially controversial topics like politics, religion, social issues, or any sensitive subject where views might differ strongly. It's natural to have different views, and you don't necessarily have to avoid these discussions. In fact, engaging respectfully can broaden perspectives. The key is to have the tools to introduce your views while subtly preparing listeners for potential disagreement. Keeping the conversation open, respectful, and constructive. When you're introducing an idea that you suspect not everyone will agree with, you can soften the delivery by prefacing it with, I know not everyone agrees with me, but this phrase acknowledges potential disagreement up front, which can disarm listeners and make them more receptive to your point. It shows humility and awareness that your view isn't universal, softening the impact of a potentially controversial opinion. For example, I know not everyone agrees with me, but I think the government needs to invest more heavily in renewable energy sources, even if it means higher initial costs. This sets a respectful tone for the discussion. Or you can acknowledge the sensitivity of the subject directly with, I know this is a contentious issue. The word contentious, meaning likely to cause an argument or debate, signals directly that the topic is sensitive and views might differ sharply. It prepares the audience for a potentially challenging discussion. I know this is a contentious issue, but I believe we need to address the impact of social media on mental health in schools. This phrase helps frame the discussion as important, even if difficult. You might even admit it's an unpopular view if you genuinely feel it's not widely accepted. It might be an unpopular opinion, but I strongly believe. This phrase prepares the listener for a view that may not be widely accepted, but it also asserts your strong conviction, showing that you've thought deeply about it. It frames your statement as a personal conviction rather than an absolute truth. It might be an unpopular opinion, but I strongly believe that employees should have the option to work remotely full-time, even after the pandemic. To show you understand others might see things differently, you can use the idiom, I don't see eye to eye with everyone on this matter, but I think it's really important to discuss this. This politely states that you know your views differ from others, using the idiom see eye to eye, which means to agree. But it emphasizes the importance of the discussion itself, encouraging dialogue despite the difference. It signals your openness to diverse views. I don't see eye to eye with everyone on this matter, but I think it's really important to discuss how we can better support diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And to politely encourage dialogue and show you're open to other perspectives, despite differing views, you could say, while you may not agree with my views, I'm definitely interested in hearing yours. This is a very formal and respectful way to invite different perspectives, fostering a balanced discussion, even on divisive topics. It sets an expectation for reciprocal listening. While you may not agree with my views on the upcoming election, I'm definitely interested in hearing yours so I can understand different perspectives. A great idiom to use when you want to ensure you're not causing offense or making anyone angry is, I'm not trying to ruffle anyone's feathers here. You can also say, I'm not intending to ruffle anyone's feathers. This idiom means, I'm not trying to make anyone upset or angry. It's a casual yet powerful way to signal that your intention is to share an opinion or perspective, not to cause conflict or create hostility. It sets a non-aggressive tone. I'm not trying to ruffle anyone's feathers here, but I do think we need to reconsider the budget allocation for this project before it's too late. These phrases help you navigate sensitive discussions gracefully, allowing for a respectful exchange of diverse ideas, which is a hallmark of advanced communication. Finally, let's talk about those moments when you want to politely and smoothly end a conversation and move on. Having these simple expressions ready will definitely help you avoid awkward goodbyes, feeling rude, or getting stuck in a conversation you're ready to leave. They allow you to gracefully exit while maintaining good rapport and leaving a positive impression. A common and friendly way to signal you need to leave is, well, I'd best be off. It's been great chatting. This phrase combines a polite way to say you're leaving with a compliment about the conversation. It's been great chatting, which leaves the other person feeling positive. I'd best be off is a natural, slightly informal way to say you need to depart. After a pleasant conversation at a party, you might say, well, I'd best be off. It's been great chatting with you about your travels. If you need to return to a task, whether it's work, studying, or chores, you can say, anyway, I better get back to it. Or more specifically, I better get back to work. These phrases are direct and clear about your need to return to responsibilities. Anyway signals a winding down of the current discussion. They are polite excuses that are widely understood and accepted. After a coffee break chat with a colleague, you might say, That was a good chat, but anyway, I'd better get back to it. I have a lot of emails to respond to. Or after a quick phone call during your workday. It's been great catching up, but I better get back to work. I have a deadline soon. If it was a chance encounter, perhaps you ran into someone unexpectedly on the street or at a store, you can end warmly and politely with, I'm so glad I ran into you. It's been great catching up. I'll see you soon. This phrase expresses genuine pleasure in the unexpected meeting and gracefully concludes it while leaving the door open for future interaction. It's perfect for those spontaneous encounters. After bumping into an old friend at the supermarket, you might say, I'm so glad I ran into you. Oh, it's been great catching up. We should definitely grab coffee sometime soon. I'll see you soon. This leaves a very positive final impression. These phrases help you politely excuse yourself without being rude or abrupt, ensuring your departure is as smooth and pleasant as your arrival. And there you have it. That brings us to the end of our in depth episode, truly exploring these essential conversational English phrases. We've gone through how to invite opinions, interrupt politely, get back on track, check understanding, express agreement and disagreement, both partial and complete, change topics, handle controversial subjects with grace, and even end conversations smoothly. These aren't just words, they are the rhythmic heart of daily communication, the subtle signals and polite constructions that native speakers use all the time. My hope is that by breaking down not just what they mean, but why they're important and how to use them in varied contexts, you feel much more confident incorporating them into your own speaking. This knowledge empowers you to participate more fully, express yourself more precisely, and feel completely at ease in any English conversation. Listen out for them in movies, podcasts, and daily life. The more you hear them, the more natural they'll feel on your tongue. Don't try to master all of them at once, but definitely choose a couple from each category that you're excited to try out in your next English interaction. Practice makes perfect, and every conversation is an opportunity to learn and grow. Thank you so much for spending your time learning with me today on English in Moments. Your dedication and support really help us create more helpful content for learners just like you. I'm Elena, and I can't wait to see you again in the next episode. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep exploring the wonderful world of English. Bye for now.